will probably be in those companies that have a communal element, restaurants and entertainment venues. But also, in addition to the online spending, I think people are really appreciating what they have locally, and that there's going to be a trend for local consumer engagement with their local businesses. And I think one thing that bodes well for Mount Airy is what we saw, as we saw with the recession a decade ago. Leisure travel tends to bounce back faster than business travel, and people are going to start, when they start feeling safe and comfortable, they're going to start exploring outside their own localities and start traveling to new places. I think there's some great opportunities for innovation, especially as we saw the impact of how technology helped a lot of companies last year. And I think another thing that is starting to get a lot of new press out there is this idea of stakeholder capitalism, and how business need to take concern not only the shareholders of their company, but the larger stakeholders, their employees, their community, and so on. And I think a lot of companies in this area and across the country were looking at that stakeholder capitalism in a way that they need to take care of their employees. They need to look at how they can help their communities in light of what was going on with the pandemic. Please, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out and contact me. My email address is there, and when I get done here, I'll copy all this information into the chat box so you have it. Follow me on LinkedIn or Twitter. I tend to put some information out there that's business oriented, and at this point, I'll stop and leave it for some questions.
Christy mentioned as well as the Chamber has an ambassador group, that we'd like some tips on how to keep that group relevant right now and better maintain it through the year. These are our people who are customer service people, Dave, that go out and visit with our members. And, it's been a little more difficult now in this age of COVID, but any thoughts on that?
Well, I think it always comes down to what is the value proposition? What is the Chamber's value proposition? I think everybody in this call probably understands that, but making sure that those ambassadors that you have going out there can articulate that well. I think one of the challenges that I saw when I was at Nestor Hosiery, and I think exists throughout the industries, is sometimes there's a disconnect between the people doing the communicating and the people creating the communication, and so making sure that there's strong alignment. I always struggled with my salespeople that I worked with, the ones who could not really embrace what our brand was about, and they would just make it up on the fly. And I would take them aside at trade shows and stuff like that, said, like, what you said was factually wrong, and he was focused on not making the sale and not on representing the brand and engaging the brand. So I think brand ambassadors, I think your influencers, they always have to go back to what that value proposition is. What is the mission? What is the vision? And being able to articulate that well and demonstrate that. And I think whether you're doing that virtually or in person, if you can do that authentically and sincerely, that will show itself. If it looks like you're just phoning it in, that'll show itself as well.
Absolutely, that's good advice. And consistency has always been making sure everybody's on the same page. And Bob Meineke has a good question to ask you, Dave, and that, are there trends now to have more products produced in America rather than overseas?
Well, I think that's been going on for quite some time. Obviously, we have companies like Nestor Hosiery and other factories in the area that are making things here in the United States. I think I think one of the first things we have to recognize, and this is one of the things that I think a lot of people struggle with, is we're in a global economy. We're in a global marketplace, and that's the reality we're in. And the argument you have to make is, where's the best place to make it? And if it's the best place is not here, then you have to be willing to defend that. But I don't think that is always the case. I think there's a lot of good reasons to be making things here in the United States, but it also requires having that supply chain resiliency. I think one of the things that we've learned from the pandemic And I think we've also even learned from maybe the trade issues that occurred over the last few years is that you need to be able to be resilient with your supply chain and have and identify where you can get your materials for producing your goods, whether you're making them here or elsewhere. Um, I think one of the things that will probably come out in the future here is more desire to make things locally or do things locally. I think that's going to be a positive thing for all communities and for the country in
Right.
general.
John Tarn asks as well, what are your thoughts, Dave, on corporate trade shows returning? Do you seeing any movement on that?
That's a great question. I'm actually taking part right now. One of the trade shows that I frequent for twice a year, every year for all the time that I was at Nestor Hosiery, and then even after I left there, is the Outdoor Retailer Show, which is the premier outdoor trade show for the outdoor recreation industry. And the pandemic put a huge kibosh on us having an in-person event last summer. They did a virtual trade show. They learned a lot from that. And this month, the whole month of January, they're calling it the month of outdoor retailer winter market. And I'm taking part of a lot of virtual seminars and speaking engagements. Now I'm like some of the companies that are having the interaction to promote their products and goods. I'm not necessarily doing that, but I think one of the things we're going to see coming out of this, and I think some trade shows will start to return. I saw something recently, and I can't remember what industry it was, but it was a trade show that was happening this month. But it had a huge social distancing, mask protocols in place, a lot of safety protocols put in place so they could conduct their business. I think you're going to see that, but I also think you're going to see a hybrid approach. One of the frustrations I always had going to any trade show, whether it be the outdoor retailer or other trade shows I went in the past, is you have the event going on, especially if you're there as a presenting company. You got to be in your booth. You're meeting with customers, you're meeting with suppliers, you're meeting with people, and you're missing out on all the networking or the educational opportunities that are occurring in parallel, because you just can't break free to go attend a seminar on something that you think might be valuable to your own professional development or to your company. I
Right.
think one of the things that I'm seeing is with these virtual events is I'm actually able to go and now participate in these seminars, these learning events, and get that knowledge that I may have missed if I was actually physically present at the trade show. So
Right.
I think trade shows are going to come back, but I think they're going to be radically different than what we've seen in the past.